Hi everyone, welcome to the FF Salon at Money 2020. My name is Emily Redding.
And I'm Roisin Levine, Head of UK and Europe for Wise Platform.
Well, welcome Roisin. Thank you so much for joining me post-lunch as well.
Yeah.
We also have Jose here, the wonderful Jose. I know that you two have already got to know each other quite well because we're in. We're doing it, we're moving, which is fantastic.
I'm going to look amazing.
You're going to look amazing. Well, you have a fabulous head of hair. There's quite a lot to work with here.
Thank you.
So, I mean, I might come back behind to help with some hairspraying. Don't worry, I'm not going to have any scissors in my hand. So I'm not
out
chopping
tonight,
anything.
so go crazy.
Go crazy. The bigger the hair, the better.
That's it.
Okay, fantastic.
Make a statement.
So while Jose is working his magic in the background, let's have a little chat, shall we?
Sounds good.
Why don't you tell me a little bit about what you do?
Sure.
What's your job title?
Yeah.
And do it in a way that if you were explaining it to your grandma or
Yep.
someone that has no idea about what you do.
Yeah, that sounds good. Okay, so I'm Head of UK and Europe for Wise Platform. Wise Platform is a part of Wise, which is a money movement network where we actually provide that infrastructure to banks and financial service institutions. So if you want to make cross-border payments today, you can come to us and you can leverage Wise's network that we spent over a decade building that helps move money internationally at low cost and high speeds. And that's the reason we're at Money 2020 today, to talk to lots of our bank partners and lots of maybe new prospects for us.
Fantastic. Great answer. Very succinct. I like it as well. So money really does make the world go round, and you guys are the ones that are actually shifting it behind the scenes. Have I got that right?
100%. And at the moment today, for a lot of people, that's quite like an expensive process, quite a slow process, and Wise is all about changing that. So rather than this taking a few days to reach the person you want it to and being very expensive, we're trying to make that cheaper and easier for everyone.
Okay, so I mean, let's maybe have a chat about like the technological advances that have happened and are continuing to happen in the last few years. How long have you been doing what you've been doing, and also what have you found that's been different? Because I can imagine a lot has changed for how you guys fundamentally operate as an infrastructure.
Yeah, so I think when the founders set up the business, they realised they were moving money. I think they're Estonian and they were working in the UK and they were moving money back home, and they just realised they were paying this huge fee for doing so for what seemed like a really easy transaction to make, and they weren't really sure why that was. So they set up Wise, and the idea was like, okay, we should be able to make this as seamless as sending an email. And that was the idea, right? It's like, why is an email free and it gets there straight away, but when you send money, that's not the case.
That's a really nice way of looking at it.
Yeah,
and you don't really be as easy as sending an email.
Exactly, you don't think of that. You always think like, oh, it's a big scary process and it goes through this kind of chain of correspondence, and that's how today's money moves. What Wise does is we actually do 2 domestic payments. So what happens is, actually money moves domestically in one direction, and then at the other side of the world, another domestic transfer happens. And that's how we enable things to work really quickly and to be a much lower cost. So we have bank partners around the world that we work with, and we're also integrated into direct payment schemes. So basically over the last 10 years, all we've done is enhance that network. So we've grown new partners, we've gone into new areas, we've done more of these direct schemes, and actually that's how we're able to do what we do. And so now loads of people around the world can move money, and they don't have to use the current correspondent banking network to do so, they can use Wise.
Interesting, that is fascinating. And what got you into this? How did you end up here?
I actually first, I think, started in fintech quite a few years ago, and I've worked at a few fintechs, and I always knew of Wise. So Wise has always been the kind of like, you know, one of the great fintechs to come out of the UK scene and done really well. So I think Wise maybe approached me a few years back, and I just thought, right, I have to have the conversation. I ended up having the conversation, and fast forward, I'm back at Money 2020 with Wise, so it obviously worked. But I thought, look, great brand, and what was really interesting to me was, okay, they've done this journey so far where they've kind of got this amazing B2C brand, but what they wanted to do was basically tackle, like, I suppose, selling to banks and financial service institutions. And that was an area that I'd done a lot of, so I'd done lots of bank partnerships in my previous roles, and I thought, okay, this is interesting. And it was kind of like a scale-up function within Wise. So although Wise was a pretty big company by this point, actually they just floated, I kind of thought, right, this could be interesting because there's still something to do, there's a big opportunity here. And actually that team is pretty high growth, and we're still kind of winning new partners, and that's the exciting part for me.
That's really cool. And in terms of sort of your personal kind of aspirations and sort of where you've come from and where you sort of see yourself, is there a defining moment in your career that was either really pivotal, that you're really proud of? Was there a day when you were like, this is a good day. This is a good day. Maybe not a good week. It doesn't always have to be. Was there a good day? Something you're really proud of?
I don't know if there was like one particular, but I think there was a moment in my career where I started to work doing kind of like the larger sort of deals, so larger partnerships. So you kind of move from like kind of like the quicker sort of sales cycles to something that's a bit larger and actually more complicated. So working with a bank, for example, like figuring out how to do that. And I think once you do like your first few, you're suddenly like, okay, this is a very much a new area. Yeah. And I think being able to kind of take that forward and do it for Wise now is kind of where I'm most proud, and I enjoy it. And I think if we can win more and more big banks, I think that's kind of where we'll kind of hopefully see ourselves, our ambition ultimately.
Sure. And what are you finding at the moment that's your biggest customer challenge? Or that's such a buzzword. We'll come on to those in a sec as well. What's the biggest pain point? What's the one thing that you're hearing over and over again? And is there something that you guys you're meeting or you're matching or you're going to mitigate?
Yeah, so I think for us, it's like we talk to banks and they ultimately want to do the things that they do really well, and we say, great, you stick to that and we can maybe take care of some international payments. I think previously, when we spoke to banks, maybe our offering wasn't quite as mature as it is now.
Okay.
So I think one of the things that's been a challenge for us is actually going back to somewhere like this conference and saying, our product's really moved on, our solution's in a new place, and actually you can work with us. And a lot of people know Wise as a brand that they're a consumer, they want to move money to their friend, but it's actually talking to them about it as a white label infrastructure product. And that's actually a challenge for us to kind of get that message out to the market. So hence it's good to do things like this and actually talk to more of the kind of FIs, rather than just saying, right, you know, as somewhere that you move money, but it may be between friends and family. So that, I think, is the thing that we're tackling at the moment. I think we're doing a pretty good job because Wise Platform now is something you'll hear more and more. And we did
our differentiated offering, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we actually hosted our first event, which was more just centered around Wise Platform in London. So this was a couple of weeks ago, and it was a real success. So we had loads of people coming along, and we spoke about Wise Platform more than just sort of Wise as a wider brand.
A nice brand pivot there.
Exactly. There we go. So yeah, so more of that basically, and I think after that, the awareness will be there, where we'll be able to kind of walk into those conversations more often, and people recognise Wise Platform as well as Wise.
Yeah, makes sense. And in terms of kind of looking at sort of advice, say for young women coming into this industry, what are the do's, what are the don'ts, what are the highs, what are the lows? Talk to me about that. I mean, you've probably seen a fair bit, you've got a super high-powered leadership role now. What does that kind of look like for you? Because the world's a very different place from when we had our first forays into the career world.
I know, and it's funny because a lot of people reach out to me, especially from LinkedIn, and say like, how do I get into fintech and things like that? And actually, my advice is always quite similar, because I think sometimes what I find is people want to work in fintech, and it's a great place to work, and I fully advocate that, because I think it's a lovely space where there is like a load of progress and it's modernising, and I've had a great time in it. But people often think about getting into the fintech themselves specifically, so thinking like, what company should I go and apply to? And actually my point is more, think about the skills that you're going to bring to the organisation, and actually you can enter tech as a sector generally and move into fintech if that's the right thing for you. So almost don't get too caught up in, I must work for a particular brand of fintech first of all in order to get into fintech. I have to be in
a bank.
Because actually I didn't. I kind of moved through my career, and actually my kind of core was more kind of like sales and the commercial side of business and partnerships, and then eventually ended up in fintech as a space that I enjoy and now have a network in. But it wasn't that I had to set about with that route in mind. And so I always say to people, like, just kind of create skills, like keep doing the right thing. If you're amazing at product, do that, and you're going to find yourself into, you know, many opportunities where you can be a great product manager. If you're amazing at sales, do that, but ultimately then you make yourself useful. Whereas if you kind of just go approach saying, hey, I want to work in fintech because I like fintech, someone's always going to ask, yeah, but what are you going to bring ultimately?
And it's a highly competitive job market.
It is highly competitive.
A lot of talent.
It is, but actually what's good is there's loads now of networking events, there's loads of these kind of groups you can get involved in. If you go on LinkedIn, if you go to any meetups, I always say learn what you want, turn up to places, try and understand the sector as a whole, but always remember you need to bring those skills with you. And like, you can start out in your career, and what's quite interesting in fintech is because there's so many high growth companies, sometimes they can propel you quite quickly. So quite often you will see people enter as a graduate potentially, or completely entry level, and then they'll move up very quickly through the ranks, especially if they're working like a scale up or
and
a
move.
company.
So be careful, don't burn bridges, because chances are you'll see someone that you've seen.
World.
It's a small world.
And that's for good and for bad, I suppose. But I think generally speaking, in my experience, it's been a really nice place to work, and I've got friends like across lots of different companies still, and like I bump into people all the time, and I think all of that's really great, and you've got to keep that network, and you know, I try and help out people when I can, and I think all of that is really important.
Absolutely. I'm going to come and join Jose. I'm going to see if he can give me a quick tutorial in some sort of curlness, because this is looking amazing. I know, this is the thing, is I have to
I
get
don't even
involved.
know what's going on.
Have you seen Queer Eye?
Yeah, I've seen.
I feel like Jonathan Van Ness right now, with absolutely no knowledge. So just to round it off, because I think he's just like setting it. I'm just gonna like, I'm gonna like twist. I'm gonna pretend like I know what I'm doing here.
Great.
Best thing and worst thing about working in fintech, as if you could be as honest. Don't worry, you don't have to name names or anything. But
best
like,
thing and worst thing. Okay, I've got it. Right.
Good.
The best thing about working in fintech is that once you're in the space, you end up making lots of friends, and people stay in that sector for a long time. So you end up having friends across lots of different companies that can be helpful at different times. The worst thing about working in fintech is that I come to Money20 every year, and although I love Money20, it always falls on my birthday.
oh, when's your birthday?
It is actually not tomorrow, the next day, Thursday. So I'm actually this year I am home in time for my birthday, but most of the time I end up spending my birthday at Money20, which I have no offense to Money20, love it, but it's not always where you
can say it's not where you want to spend your birthday.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. So that's the only downside in my view. But this year I've somehow managed to wangle that I'll be home for my birthday.
She's good, guys. What a politically brilliant answer that was. I mean, that was, apart from, there's a great worst as well, but it was a very good answer. I love it.
And maybe I'll get some birthday presents for mentioning my birthday.
Yes, get some freebies. Just wander around.
Yeah, exactly.
It's my birthday tomorrow. Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh, well I hope you have a wonderful birthday.
Thank you.
Jose, that was an absolute feat of hairstyling to get that down. I don't know how long that interview was, but that is so quick.
It's really impressive.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
How good. I've got, dinner tonight, so now
you're ready.
Bother going back to the hotel.
Oh yes. Right, here we are. We're ready for the big swivel.
Oh my God, how did you manage that? You did work quick.
Yeah.
That looks so good. Thank you. Beautiful. Thanks very much, guys.
Thank you so much for joining me today. That was really fun. That was a pleasure.
Thank you.